household which wasn't unanimous on this subject, on the EU, a few weeks ago. So myself, my wife Julie and my daughter Lauren, we followed the debates or so-called discussions on TV quite interestingly. And one of the things that stood out is that the majority of working class people, it seems, are voting to leave the EU, or if they vote at all. And this has been interpreted by the middle class people who occupy the upper reaches in the Labour Party as well, yeah, they're following Nigel Farage with his racist policies. But I think there's a quite different explanation for this. And this was brought out to me when we were discussing what the Remain campaign is saying would happen if Britain leaves the common market. There'll be a £30 million worth of cuts. The health service will be devastated. Local government services will be devastated. Manufacturing industry will take jobs abroad. And my daughter said, well, that's the situation that we've got now. And we're in the European Union, and this is the situation we've got now. And I think most working people, hearing these scare tactics from the Remain campaign, are taking that line. Either we can't believe them because they're politicians, which is the most widespread thing that you hear when you talk to people about politics. Alternatively, they say, well, we've already got this disastrous situation. And I think that the way that the Socialist Party has approached it, if the Labour leadership had approached it in that way, people like Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell, if they had approached it from that point of view, they would have been interviewed on television in the places where Nigel Farage is being interviewed at the moment. Because in the absence of a Labour movement opposition to the Remain camp, inevitably the media have blown up the influence of Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage out of all proportion, in my opinion.
Reading the Financial Times a couple of weeks back, and their editorial page had two editorials. The first one was on Poland, and a new right-wing government has been elected in Poland, very right-wing populist, which has launched a series of attacks on democratic rights, including the free press and in particular. And the article dealt with the EU sending Poland a warning to say that if we don't reinstate these democratic rights, then they will take sanctions. And the FT agreed with that. Yet the second editorial was about France. And you may have seen in the last few weeks, French workers have been on strike, taking industrial action and protesting against a series of labour and trade union laws, which will hit the 35-hour week, which has been in law for decades now in France. Trade union rights, as I said, and other labour laws. And workers have come out in millions to protest against these laws, which have been undemocratically forced through by a so-called socialist, the right-wing socialist in reality. But of course, the FT didn't say, the EU should come in and defend the right to strike or the 35-hour week. No, the Financial Times was in favour of the French government doing this, and of course, why? Because the government is pushing through austerity on behalf of French and European capitalists. So, in other words, the EU is used consciously to bear down on certain governments, but to support measures which will benefit the bosses in the long term. It cuts it's austerity cuts, making workers work longer for less money is okay. But not, just the question of democratic rights is, unacceptable in this particular case. So it's a hypocritical organisation. It doesn't defend workers taking action. Supposing here on the trade union bill, which has been an act now, which has just been passed, workers had come out on strike, would we have expected the EU to support us? Of course not. It doesn't stand for our democratic rights in reality. It's an undemocratic organisation. It has pushed through, it would defend what Cameron has got through Parliament. Sadly, without even a national demonstration supported by the trade unions. And in reality, it's because it is a boss's club. That's how we posed it in the 70s when we had a referendum here. And of course, we're told now that it's an issue between the right wing and between the Tories in reality, and we shouldn't support the right wing, as if there was no right wing in supporting Exit in 1975. Yes, it was mainly a discussion in the Labour Party and on the left, but there were people like Enoch Powell, just as dangerous as Nigel Farage, and with probably a worse record in terms of racism and trying to divide workers, and the far right of the Tory party, the Monday Club, as they were known. And they were a dangerous factor in those days. So we had to deal with them as well. And the tragedy of this referendum is that the Labour Party and the major left trade unions have not had an independent voice, and in fact, they're tail-ending the Tories. And that's been the real tragedy of this. No real Labour movement, independent voice. And we have to pose that. We have to raise that voice as socialists to at least get a certain hearing, as we've done a little bit through our Trade Unionists and Socialist Coalition and so on.
Yeah, thanks, Isa.